Welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Wednesday, everybody. And that means today we are continuing to break down the Notre Dame USC matchup that is happening this Saturday night, Battle for the Jeweled Shillelagh. Saturday night inside of Notre Dame Stadium, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. This is going to be a fun one today, Brian. You got a new background.
Man.
We're talking keys to victory today,
well,
man.
Got a new background at somebody else's house. Big shout out to DMND13, he's one of the OGs on the site. We're kind of at the halfway point between our trip out east to go attend the funeral for my wife's stepdad, and they offered to just kind of have their little home studio. So I got this little background, and I feel like I'm getting my school picture taken, right? Like I'm ready to go, man. So yeah, I'm ready to talk about this game, and it's a big one for Notre Dame in a lot of different ways, Trev. A lot of different ways. Today we're going to talk about matchups. We're going to talk about keys to victory. Doing our new format, continuing our new format. So that way tomorrow we can spend a lot of time previewing a lot of these other big games that are going on tomorrow after our prediction show. But, look, this is going to be a test for Notre Dame. Notre Dame's the better team. They're the team that should win. But at the same time, this is going to be a battle. It's going to be a win you're going to have to earn. And I'm looking forward to breaking it down and talking more about it.
It's definitely going to be a fun one to dive into. And I'm a pretty impatient person, so I'm ready to dive into it head first, man. I'm ready to dive into it. We're talking matchups that matter. Go ahead.
You're usually pretty patient, Trev, but this week with USC, I mean, it's like it's fourth quarter of the NC State game, and Trev's texting me like, "Okay, let's start talking about USC game. Let's get ready for this." So he's ready to go. He's ready to go.
I'm amped. I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning just because I couldn't go back to sleep. It was the second day in a row. I need this game to happen, and I need it to happen now, which brings us to talking about the matchups that matter. And we're breaking this down offensive and defensively. And look, we talked yesterday about how much this game means. And we talked about what's at stake for Notre Dame. We talked about USC as a whole. Today, we're talking about the individual matchups that are going to dictate whether Notre Dame is going to walk off the field with a dub or if they're going to walk off the field and have a lot to think about in the bye week. And where we're going to start, Brian, because this is a talented team on both sides of the ball. But we're starting with Notre Dame slot receivers versus Kamari Ramsey, safety. And this is something that we actually talked about before the show. When you go and you look at USC on film, what they do a lot of, Brian, is they will rotate Kamari Ramsey down when teams go in 11 personnel, something that Notre Dame does quite a bit. This is going to be a matchup that Notre Dame has to win on offense.
It's a very interesting decision by Coach Lynn, who, as you know, Trev, I think very high level. I think Danton Lynn's done a very nice job there. This is not a great defense, but it's a solid defense. It's a defense that give you problems. And this is 2 years removed from that defense being an absolute sieve. Just an absolutely awful defense. And they play with a lot more toughness. They fly around more. There's a lot more discipline than there was last year. But one of the interesting things is that I don't think they have like a real true nickel. And so what they've chosen to do is they bring Kamari Ramsey down, who I think is one of the better safeties on the schedule for Notre Dame this year. And the pickup of Bishop Fitzpatrick has allowed them to, or Fitzgerald, it's Fitzgerald, right? Bishop Fitzgerald. Bishop Fitzgerald has allowed them to have some flexibility with Kamari, because if he doesn't come over, you don't have the depth at safety to really bring him down that way. And he ends up playing a lot in the slot. Now, this presents some positives for Notre Dame and also some dangers for Notre Dame. And I'll start the concerns first. Is this matchup for Will Paulding is Notre Dame's going to try to run their mid zone, their outside zone. They're going to try to, run their screen game. And that Will Paulding, if Jaden Greathouse doesn't play, it's Will Paulding against Kamari Ramsey on the perimeter of the run game. I don't love that matchup for Notre Dame. So the slots are going to have to be there. If Jaden Greathouse is there, I feel a little bit better about his ability to block Kamari Ramsey. But Will Paulding, who's a strong kid, he's just smaller, is going to have his hands full in that regard. And so that's part of the matchup there. But the other part of it is the one that I think is in Notre Dame's favor, which is especially if Jaden Greathouse plays, especially if he plays, and they're smart enough to play him more, is the pass game matchup is one that I like. Kamari Ramsey's a really good alley safety. He's a really good zone safety. He's a really good force against the run. He's not a great cover guy, Trev, and I think that's a matchup where I think Notre Dame can kind of take advantage of some things and find some success, is if they can find ways to get Kamari Ramsey to have to chase the receivers, whether it's slot fades, whether it's out cuts, whether it's screen game, whether it's crossers. I think that they're going to have to find some ways to get open against him. But I'll be honest, like Will Pauling has not been a great route runner so far for Notre Dame. He's had some good moments, but he's kind of thrived. A lot of his numbers are him just being wide open. He's going to have to win off the line more in this game, and it gives him an opportunity to kind of show, hey, I am that dude that's produced those numbers. He can't help it that teams blow coverages when he's running routes. That's not like a negative on Will Pauling. It's just the reality of the situation where he hasn't had to win a lot off the line. He did one last week where he just smoked the nickel for a 42-yard gain. So that was like, okay, there we go. So it's not a criticism of Will Pauling. It's more just like we just haven't seen him have to do it a whole lot. And he's going to have to do it more. I just don't see Kamari Ramsey blowing coverages. He's a veteran. He's been around a while. And he came with Danton Lynn from UCLA. So he's been in the system now 3 years. He just doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And I think that's why they put him down in the nickel in this particular matchup. Or in this season. So it's going to present some unique opportunities. And if Notre Dame's going to have success, they're going to have to handle that matchup.
I like that you referenced it in both phases as well, not just in the pass game, because Kamari Ramsey is one of the most sure tacklers on that defense. Yesterday, I talked about how the back end of this USC defense gives up a lot of big plays. Tackling has been an issue. Kamari Ramsey is not one of those players. He's played in 5 games this season, hasn't missed a single tackle. And a lot of the work that he does is out in space. He's a veteran guy, a lot of experience. It's definitely a matchup that Notre Dame is going to have to win in the run game and take advantage of in the pass game, because you go and you look at his numbers on PFF. He's been targeted 17 times, allowed 12 receptions. Most of the receiving yards he's given up as well came after the catch. He has only given up 1 touchdown on the season, but it's because when you look at the personnel groupings that have gone up against Kamari Ramsey, some of those teams don't have a Jaden Greathouse or a Will Pauling at their disposal. Definitely one to keep an eye out on. The second matchup, Brian, we're sticking with the receiving core here, and we talk about it every single week. And sometimes you just need your dudes to be dudes, and Malachi Fields so far this season has shown that he is that dude in the boundary this year for Notre Dame. His matchup this weekend with DeCarlos Nicholson is going to be one that Notre Dame will have to take advantage of. Malachi Fields was targeted a little bit last week, but we didn't get to see the Malachi Fields that we're used to seeing. It was, his first game under 40 yards in like 11 games. He had 1 catch for 20 yards, not for a lack of targets, but in a game with this much magnitude, in a game that's this big, you're going to need Malachi Fields to win this matchup with Nicholson.
I think this is a good-on-good matchup, Trev. I do. I think DeCarlos Nicholson's a good football player. I don't think he's an elite player, but I think he's a good football player. And when I look at this particular matchup, for example, I think this is a game, where you look at DeCarlos Nicholson. He's got size that a lot of guys don't have against Malachi Fields. He's 6'3". He's 1.5 inches at least taller than Will Lee, who Notre Dame went up against in week 2. He's smooth. He's not like a burner, but he's smooth. He's fluid. He does some good things. He's been good most of the year. He is coming off of a game against USC where I don't think he necessarily played that great. And he got beat a few times in that game. And Michigan had some success throwing into the boundary against him in this game. And with all due respect to Michigan's receivers, they're not as good as Malachi Fields. And so, I want to go at him because this is his first real test of a team that's got like a really good, big, talented boundary receiver. And I want to see Notre Dame to go against it because Malachi, look, last week, Malachi was, I think, targeted 7 times, 1 completion because NC State was geared towards not letting Malachi Fields go off. USC could do that. I don't know that they will do that. And either way, this is a game where Malachi is going to have to win this matchup, run game wise, blocking wise, but then also in the pass game, because I think you're going to really need Malachi Fields in this game to give you something. Like the matchup on the other side with Marcellus Williams and Jordan Faison, that's one that Jordan Faison and hopefully we get to see some of KK Smith. They did something interesting last week that if Jaden Greathouse can't go, I want to see more of. And that was in the second half. They were putting KK at Z and Faison in the slot. And that's a very interesting one. And then maybe now we're talking about Jordan Faison against Kamari Ramsey in that first one at times if Greathouse can't go. But we did see those snaps where you saw KK Smith outside. So whether it's KK or Jordan Faison, and they present two very different skill sets. And I hope, Trev, that we see more of KK playing for reasons I've mentioned. I want to give Jordan Faison a breather. He's playing way too many reps. I'm worried about him wearing down. Number two, him and KK bring different skill sets. And I also want to see at times where you have both of them on the field together with KK at Z and Jordan in the slot. But Jordan's the shifty, the outs, the slants, the comebacks, the stops, the after the catch. It's not really like a big vertical threat, but KK is the exact opposite. KK is a vertical threat. So you present two different matchups over there. So I like that matchup for Notre Dame. But if DeCarlos Nicholson is able to play Malachi Fields one-on-one, that allows USC to kind of roll their coverage a bit more and help out to the field where maybe they don't have the same sort of advantageous matchups that they have. Notre Dame doesn't have the same advantageous matchups if they're rolling coverage as they will if USC is really focused on trying to stop Malachi Fields. So if I'm D'Anton Lynn, I'm going to try and see if DeCarlos can handle this matchup. And then I'm going to try to help out to the field. But if he can, now they can help out. If he can't, then you're in a situation where now USC can play your other stuff more. They can focus more attention on Eli Raritan. They can focus more attention on, if you're giving them problems in the slot. Let's say that Greathouse or Pauling or Faison comes out early and beats DeCarlos or beats Kamari Rams in a couple plays. And you look into the boundary and DeCarlos is just locking up Malachi Fields. And you could say, hey, let's adjust our coverage to make sure we're helping out against the tight end and the slots. And so I think it's imperative that you win this matchup because what makes this team so difficult to defend is it's hard to guard everybody. And if Malachi gets going, I think that's the true key to this pass game going off because now you have to kind of help him out and now play everybody else straight up. And that's hard to do with all the weapons that Notre Dame has.
No, I agree with you completely. So does FanDuel. I mean, they have Malachi Fields over under set right now at 51.5 after coming off of his lowest output in almost a season and a half. So you go and you look at this matchup in the boundary. We're talking about a cornerback that has given up 4 touchdowns this season. Half of those came last game against the receiving corps. Like you said, with all due respect to the Michigan Wolverines, I don't really think they hold a candle all that much to Notre Dame's receiving corps that features Fields and Faison and potentially Greathouse or Pauling. One aspect of this matchup that I think will be interesting is if Denbrock is going to try to stretch the field at all this week in the boundary, now that you have Cam Williams as the second string with Micah Gilbert out with a hurt hand. I do think that's going to be interesting to see if he's going to utilize that in any sort of way to maybe not necessarily get a target, but you're talking about Fields and Williams have two very different skill sets. It's not that Fields is a stiff in the boundary, but I will be very interested to see if they utilize Cam Williams at all. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in the keys to victory part, about keeping up the pace and pushing the pace and tempo. You get two guys on the field like KK Smith and Cam Williams. That might be interesting to see what they do to USC's corners.
I want to say something else about this too, Trev, because part of the reason that we talk about DeCarlos Nicholson in this matchup is because they play field boundary like Notre Dame. So they have Marcellus Williams to the field. They have DeCarlos Nicholson to the boundary. Another potential wrinkle that I'd love to see is some stuff, and we saw it a little bit last week where they were putting Jordan Faison into the boundary, and you put Malachi Fields to the field, and now let him get some matchups against Marcellus Williams or some matchups against Kamari Ramsey. And so that's something you can do too, is if you're getting whooped by Kamari Ramsey in the run game, that's an easy adjustment to make. And now they've got some tough decisions to make. Like, I would like to see DeCarlos Ramsey trying to chase Jordan Faison all over the field. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then have them try to handle Malachi Fields. So I would do some of that stuff in this game. Really especially if you can get your run game going early and force them to get that boundary safety down into the box, and then open up some one-on-ones to the field. Then getting Malachi matched up in some of those situations would be good. But at the end of the day, the matchup that's primary is going to be that one in the boundary. And I would love to see them play Cam Williams and say, look, man, we need you to do 4 things. We need you to run a hitch route. We need you to run a stop route. We need you to run a go route. We need you to block. That's it. That's it.
Plain and simple. And I like it, and keep it simple for him because athletically he's a freak that I think he could start to see some time this week, especially given the limited depth at receiver.
And I was talking to a buddy of mine recently who knows some NFL scouts, and he was telling me that NFL scouts come away from Notre Dame practice like, dude, I don't know who this number 5 is if they're not playing, but this guy's a freaky athlete. He's an SEC athlete. So, I mean, people see it that don't, but just for whatever reason, the Notre Dame coaches don't want to put them on the field. So,
well, hopefully this is
CJ Card, love it.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is absolutely for sure. And here's to hoping that we see him this week. One player that I am for sure certain that we are going to see this week in Notre Dame starting lineup is offensive lineman Joe Otting, who is stepping in for Ashton Craig, who went down with an unfortunate season-ending knee injury, hoping for a speedy recovery for Ashton Craig. But that paved the way for Joe Otting to earn his first collegiate start. I don't know if the stage gets much bigger for the redshirt sophomore than starting in South Bend under the lights against USC. But his matchup with the interior defensive line that we spoke pretty highly of yesterday when we were previewing USC, that's going to be a very interesting matchup to watch. You talked about Notre Dame needing to get the run game going to help support the passing attack. Joe Otting is going to play a big hand in that.
Yeah, and Joe was solid when he came off the bench. I mean, he was solid. He had some good moments and some moments where it's like, okay, he's going to have to move his feet a little bit better there and do a little bit better job there of finishing off this blocks. But that's kind of what you expect when a guy kind of gets thrown into the fire for the first time. But overall, Joe handled himself fine. He was fine, and he'll have to be on top of his game. It's going to have to grow up quickly. And he's a kid. Look, we loved him coming out of high school. I was very high on Joe Otting. I knew he'd need time to fill out and grow and those type of things. And this is his chance to kind of go show that, hey, I can play football here. Because if he struggles, then Notre Dame's going to have to spend the bye week trying to figure out, okay, do we just keep trotting him out there, or do we consider moving some people around, whether that's just moving Sullivan Absher into center or move Anthony Knapp into center and kick Kirby Lambert out to left tackle and then let Sullivan Absher play right guard. And so, I mean, you're going to have to figure some things out there, but hopefully Joe Otting comes out and plays really good football. And he's like, hey, coach, I got this. Like, we're good. I got this. Cause if he can handle USC, then he's going to be fine the rest of the way. This is probably the best D tackle group that he's going to face from a length, athleticism, talent standpoint. It's not an elite D tackle group, but it's the best I think he's going to face the rest of the way. And like you mentioned yesterday, Trev, this isn't a big group. Keyshawn Silver's big, but the rest of them are like 6'5", 290, 295, athletic, muscular kids. And Joe's going to have his hands full. And the reality is, Trev, you're going to struggle to run the football if your center's getting dominated. We saw that a little bit against NC State. Ashton did not play a bad game. There's about 4 or 5 snaps where he got beat. And on those snaps, it just blew up the play. And so he's going to have to just hold his own. And they're going to have to be smart about how they design the game plan, around him. I think this be a game where maybe some pin and pulls would be advantageous, some gap stuff. On top, mix it up. Don't let just USC think we can defend mid zone and outside zone and duo all day. Be a little bit more creative with that run game. But Joe's going to have to hold his own, pass pro and run blocking, because that's how you can blow everything up, is just get dominated right up the middle. We say it all the time, Trev. Easiest way to shut down an offense is dominate it right up the middle. And they're going to go after him. They're going to run stunts at him. They're going to slant across his face, bring linebackers around, make him have to see twists and stunts, make him have to handle it. They're going to bring their D tackle, slam him right to his face and try to get him out of his game. They're going to go at him early. Why? Because Dan Tomlin's a good football coach. And anytime you've got a guy at a position like center that's brand new, you go at him. Hey, let's see what you got, kid. And so Joe's going to get tested early, and if he's ready for the challenge, then the offensive line should be able to do what they need to do.
Thankfully, he spent the entire spring repping with the first team and took a lot of reps alongside Billy Schrouth. And I'm hoping that is something that's going to benefit him after, basically spending an entire first part of an offseason alongside an offensive captain. So here's hoping. Definitely more than capable. Luckily, you're not giving up a whole lot of size either. Ashton Craig is 6'5", 310. Joe Otting is 6'4", 308. So it's not like build-wise you're trotting anybody out there that's significantly different. Just the experience is going to be interesting to see how he handles that. That's for sure. Brian, let's talk a little defense. And this is the side of the ball that will be very interesting to watch on Saturday because they are facing a very explosive and efficient offense when USC comes to town. And we talked about it yesterday, 3rd in the country in points per game, 2nd in the country in total yards a game, and 1st in the country in yards per play. And this is going to be one that, the defensive turnaround, the culmination of that has been leading up to this. And if they're going to have success in this matchup, they're going to need some of their guys to step up and be guys. But before we start talking about player matchups, Brian, big picture, we're talking Chris Ash versus Lincoln Riley. That's the biggest matchup in this one.
It is. And at the end of the day, as we saw against Miami, as we saw against Texas A&M, as we saw against Purdue, if the D coordinator doesn't put the talent in the position to be successful, it won't be successful. And, we're talking about a team. I mean, Colin Klein ripped Chris Ash to shreds. Shannon Dawson coached circles around Chris Ash. I would argue the guy at Penn State outcoached Chris Ash in the first half. Eventually, you're behind so much. But we've seen him improve the last 3 games. Now, I don't care what he said in the press conference last night. They're not doing the same stuff, just doing it better. There are things they're doing better. We showed that in the Upon Further Review breakdown, but they are doing things very differently. And that's going to have to continue in this game. He's not going to be able to just continue to just go out there and, let's line up and play 4-2-5, cover 2, cover 4, cover 3, and not, be aggressive. He's going to have a plan early to attack USC. He's going to have to, and we'll dive more into this in the keys to victory. He's going to have a plan to get them out of rhythm. And then he's going to have to adjust because, look, you may have Lincoln Riley down in the first half. You may be all up in Lincoln Riley's in the first half. But that dude's going to go in at halftime and say, okay, yeah, they got us in the first half, but guess what? This, and this is there. Let's adjust. Let's get the players going and then come out in the second half and then just boom, 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 right down the field. Next thing you know, 5 minutes have gone by. You punted once and they've scored twice, and now all of a sudden it's a 24-21 ball game. So you're going to have to be on top of your game. Game plan's got to be strong. Play calling's got to be strong. Adjustments have to be strong. And you've got to have some stoppers in your back pocket, meaning there's got to be some things you think you can go to in key moments to say, this is how we can get a stop. This is how we can, get to them and be prepared to use those when the time is right. That's part of the great thing about being part of the thing about being a great play caller is you may have something that, dude, I have a strong feeling that we can get to the quarterback on this play. Do I want to use that on 2nd and 5 of the first drive? Or do I want to wait till they're going down to try to tie the ball game up and pull it out here? It's kind of like Mike Denbrock in that screen that he used against Louisville last year. I know for a fact he had that, and he knew he could go to that whenever he wanted. They knew they had that. But, you wait for the right time. And he waited to the right time, and boom, you call it, and 31-17. Ball game's basically over. So it's going to have to be a big one for Chris Ash. He's going to have to be on top of his keys. And part of that means trust your coaches. But you also have to do something that Al Golden struggled to do, which is stop Lincoln Riley, because as you mentioned yesterday, Al Golden got out-coached by Lincoln Riley twice. And we'll talk about what happened that one time in the part 1 of the keys to victory on defense. But, I think this is the kind of game that can really win over the Notre Dame fan base for Chris Ash. If he can go out there and do it with this and let these guys do what they're capable of.
I transcribed his interview yesterday, and one of the things that he touched on that I did actually really like was he said that he has a better understanding of his players. And if that is true, then you know that your personnel is an aggressive defense. You know that you can play press man and be aggressive in that with Leonard Moore and with Christian Gray, and even with guys like Dallas Golden, players that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But if you truly know your players, then don't make the mistake of what Al Golden made last year in Los Angeles. Plain and simple. You had a certain game plan in 2023, and then you kind of threw it out the window in 2024, and USC and Lincoln Riley were able to take advantage. This is going to be an absolutely huge, huge matchup for Chris Ash. And to your point, he has the opportunity to kind of say, okay, the first 2.5 games were the outlier. You mentioned that yesterday. Because now what is this become? It's a pattern. It is now a trend that this defense has been ascending ever since really the second half against Purdue when you brought up in one of the upon further reviews, like, hey, we saw some more aggressive things in the second half against Purdue. Lo and behold, they allowed 1 touchdown and it was on the last play of the game against Purdue. And so there are some things that this defense is going to have to continue to implement. Chris Ash is going to be huge in that. But again, it comes down to trusting and knowing your players. And some of the players that you're going to have to trust are your edge rushers opposite of Boubacar Traore to win their matchup against Tobias Raymond. That is something that is going to be imperative in this matchup, Brian. That's the second matchup that we're talking about here.
It's a big one, Trev. And look, Tobias, it could be Elijah Page. He's been out since, I think the last game he played in, I believe, was the Purdue game. Maybe the Michigan State game. I forget which game. He got hurt in one of those 2 games. Either it was Purdue or Michigan State. I know he didn't play against Illinois, and I don't believe he played last week against USC. Tobias Raymond's been their left tackle. And
Michigan State was the last game.
Michigan State was his last game. And so, like, he was very good against Michigan. I mean, really shut them down. I like the matchup on the other side with Boubacar. Obviously going against, their big old right tackle, Justin Tuanu is my best shot at it, 6'6", 315. I like that matchup for Notre Dame. But this is a matchup that USC could take advantage of if Notre Dame's not able to play well on the side. We've seen Jordan Patojo last week. We saw a lot of Jordan Patojo and a lot of Josh Burnham at that spot. We'll potentially see a little bit of Bryce Young. But I think you've got to get to you've got to win on the edge. And this isn't just about the pass game. This is also, and actually for me, it's even more so about the run game. Because you watch him against Michigan's edge players last week. Tobias Raymond was very good in the run game, in my opinion, last week. Just really being physical at the point of attack, washing down backside cuts, being stout at the on down blocks when they're trying to run their gap scheme stuff. Obviously, Lincoln Riley's an air raid guy, so a lot of their run game is they'll run some zone, but there's a lot of gap, a lot of traps, a lot of wraps, a lot of double pulls. It's a lot of gap scheme. And that concerns me a little bit against Notre Dame's undersized defensive line. And early in last year's game, USC was hit a couple gas runs against Notre Dame before Woody Marks got hurt. And I think USC is going to come out of this game and really try to run the ball at Notre Dame. And if you can be stout on the edge and really close down, just like we saw, upon further review, I would encourage you, if you're a board member, to check it out. We put all of our upon further reviews, all of our film breakdowns up at the top in the IB film breakdown tab. But if you look at the one we did where we broke down the Notre Dame defense, we showed examples of where NC State's trying to run counter. Jordan Patojo squeezes down on and drills the guard and just clogs up the run lane. That's huge in this game. And so some of that will be going against Tobias Raymond. Some of that will be, squeezing down on him and taking on pullers. But these guys are going to have to be very good. These left ends be the right ends on the defense. It's the left end, attacking the left tackle on the offense. They're going to have to play well. Josh Burnham's been a dude the last 2 weeks when given the opportunity. I'd like to see more of him, especially if USC's having success running the ball. And then when they do throw the football, you're going to need to have a little bit of success. Rushing the quarterback is going to be important. I still think the best way to attack the quarterback rushing the pass rush against USC is more up the middle because how quickly the ball gets out. But there will be moments, especially against play action and some drops, if you're able to be aggressive with your coverage structure, there will be some win opportunities on the backside. So it is a dual threat thing, but it's run game first for me, and then getting after the quarterback. But I think this matchup is going to be very good because if Boubacar's dominating his side and they're just like, fine, we're just going to run to the left all game, and these guys don't step up and do their job, then it gets a little bit tougher for Notre Dame. But if Boubacar's doing his thing and then Patelho and Burnham and Bryce Young are doing their thing, it's going to get real tough for USC to be able to run the football. And now all of a sudden protecting the quarterback gets a little bit tougher as well.
It goes back to what we talked about last week. At some point, somebody alongside Boubacar Traore is going to have to step up, or else he's going to start to succumb to what happened to Isaiah Foskey in 2022. And teams can start to scheme around taking out just a singular defensive end. So one of those guys that you mentioned are going to have to step up. That is going to be imperative. Last guy that
I know a guy that's been making a lot of plays at that position. Josh Burnham. I mean, I've said it before, and people probably sick of me saying this. His big play, impact play to snaps ratio is insane right now.
Yeah.
They're just not playing him much. Man made 3 really impressive plays last week. Only played 11 snaps. You know, he was a heck of a player for you last year. I get he was banged up, but he's healthy now. Play him. Play him. And now him and Patelho now going back and forth. Patelho's been playing like his hair's on fire the last few weeks. Like, love how he's playing. And you get those 2 guys to start playing a lot more with Bryce Young and, playing on both sides. He could play both sides. That's how you get it going. But, yeah, play number 40 more. That'd be a great idea. Let him go make some plays.
Agreed.
Just a thought.
Agreed. He's been extremely effective, to your point, when he's been in. I agree wholeheartedly, especially after when you go and watch upon further reviews and honestly just watching the game. Number 40 is impactful when he's in there. Another player that's going to have to be impactful, it's the last matchup that we're talking about, is number 14, the true freshman, Dallas Golden at nickel. And this is going to be a matchup this is the one that I am anxious to watch. I don't want to say nervous because I have a lot of faith in Dallas Golden, but big picture, when you talk Mekhi Lemon versus true freshman, that's one that draws a lot of attention. Dallas Golden is going to have to play well this game. And it is worth mentioning, if Devontae Smith is good to go, he is also going to have to perform well. Really, this is about the nickel or slot corner versus Mekhi Lemon. As of right now, I'm saying Dallas Golden because Devontae Smith is still questionable. But whoever steps in at nickel, Brian, is going to have to play well so we don't have a repeat of a Malachi Toney or a Mario Craver.
Right. And, I mean, this is a tough matchup for the nickels, especially, for Dallas Golden. And you're going to have to be on top of your game. It requires discipline. You've got to be physical, and you've got to be patient, and you've got to have a very short memory. Because the reality is, I was talking to Sean Davis last night and on the drive, and he's like, look, he's going to get his, and that's fine. What Notre Dame needs to do is, and I was actually going to have this as a key to victory, but I decided to just talk about it here and then go with a different key to victory. But and you got to have a Mekhi Lemon plan. And what I mean by that is the way that you defend him, and part of that is Dallas or Devontae playing great. But you've got to have a plan to where, fine, if he gets 6 or 7 catches for 100 and 105 yards, fine. But don't let it be on 9 attempts. Make it be on 13, 14, 15 attempts. Really, really mix up. Make USC have to work hard to get him the football. Because if they can work hard to get him the football, if Notre Dame can kind of say, hey, look, you're going to have to do a lot to get him the ball. And then not let themselves get exposed in other areas. But like in this, we like some of those matchups. But if they're able to kind of say, hey, look, you're going to get him the ball. He's going to catch some screens, some quick games, some play actions. He's going to kind of do his thing. It is what it is. That's fine. But last year, Mekhi Lemon had 9 catches for 133 yards on 10 targets. They threw him the ball 10 times. And like, no, that you can't have that. Like, if you're going to get him, if you're going to throw him off, you need to do that with, give up 9 catches for 130 yards. Fine. Make that be on 17 targets. And you want to know how that works? Just watch what NC State did with Malachi Fields last week. They just kind of bracketed him the whole game and got up in his face and didn't let him get clean releases. And it was a lot of tight windows that he was throwing into. Now, Malachi is a much different player than Mekhi Lemon, plays the boundary compared to the slot. But the point is, don't just line up there every snap and say, okay, this is what we're doing. Hopefully we can have some success with it. Hope it really works out really well. Make them work for it. That's going to be the big key. Make them work for it. And if they can make them work for it, then Notre Dame's got a shot to have some success in this game. But you don't want to be in a situation, Trev, where he's just ripping you up and it's efficient and it's explosive and there's just not a lot you can do. You need to make him work for it. You can make him work for it, then you've got a shot to create enough incompletions and negatives to where you're still getting off the field. Yeah, he got his yards, but it was some hollow yards, and he didn't really impact the game the way that he did last year. Like you look at last year and you look at the Louisville game, Ja'Cory Brooks caught 5 passes for 71 yards. Colin Lacey caught 5 passes for 71 yards. Chris Bell caught 3 passes for 21 yards. I mean, their 3 stud receivers had 163 yards receiving on 13 catches. But they had to target Ja'Cory Brooks 9 times, had to target Colin Lacey 9 times. They targeted Chris Bell 6 times. So you're barely completing over 50% of your throws in your targets to those guys. Well, if that's where Notre Dame is, then they're going to be in a good place. And, a lot of 2nd and 9s, a lot of 3rd and 8s. Those are the places you're going to be. So he's going to get his. You got to make sure they don't go for long touchdowns. You've got to make sure that you don't let them rip you up on 3rd down. And you have to have a plan. And Trevor, this is something you said to me when we were talking, is you have to have a plan that if your nickels are struggling, what's your plan? They didn't have one when they played Mario Craver. They didn't have one against Malachi Toney. You've got to have this is what we're going to go with. But if Dallas or Devontae are struggling with Mekhi Lemon, here's what we're going to go to try to slow them down.
There has to be some sort of contingency plan. They went to having Leonard Moore shadow Mario Craver way too late into the game. Way too late. Look, in matchups like this, it's not a secret what either. And USC's defense is having the same conversation in their defensive meeting rooms too. If USC loses this game because Will Pauling goes for 130 yards in the air, but they don't let Fields beat you, they contain Raritan, they don't let Notre Dame's run game go crazy, then sometimes you just tip your cap because it's a talented football team. I was watching the Monday night game, Bills and Falcons, and the Falcons only had 2 really good offensive players available, Drake London and Bijan Robinson. And me and a buddy were talking, it's like, look, if you're the Bills defense, there's essentially 2 guys that you can't let beat you. And what happened? Bijan Robinson had 240 total yards of offense, and Drake London had 10 catches for $150 and a touchdown. I look at this matchup the same. If this is a matchup where Tanook Hines, a true freshman, goes for $110 and is an efficient receiver, sometimes you just tip your cap to a really talented football player. But if it's like last year where, you line up, you watched it happen to you last year, you watched Mekhi Lemon tear you up, and if you make that same mistake again this year, that's a lapse in preparation. So there has to be levels to different plans that you have with Dallas Golden. While he's on the field, and if he's doing a good job, give him safety help. Don't leave him out. Don't leave a true freshman out on an island and ask him to guard USC's best receiver for 60 minutes. And like we talked about, if it's not working out, you have to have some level of a contingency plan. And when it's, in the 4th quarter, 3 minutes left in a tie ball game, that can't be when you make the switch. Be like, hey, 15, how about you go shadow 6 for the rest of the game? It's like, oh, for the next 95 seconds? Cool. Sounds good. So there has to be some level of a contingency plan. That's going to be huge in this one. Absolutely. That's the 3rd matchup. It's going to be a big one, Brian. Definitely going to be a big one.
These are all areas where USC has got – the matchups we went with are all areas where these are not, hey, this bum that USC has, go rip them up. These are matchups where these are good football players. And you're going to have to be on top of your game, and to me, that's ultimately what wins games like this. Not that, hey, we went out and tore up this kid who's not good. Yeah, you have to do that. That's a given. When you have matchup advantages, it's a given you take advantage of those. That's what any good coach is going to do. But to win games like this, to beat the best teams on your schedule, there's a lot more to it, Trev. And part of that is, hey, where are they good? And where are you also good? Or, and your guys got to win those matchups. Where are they good? And maybe you're not as good. You have to have a plan to be able to thrive in those situations. And so that's why I look at Trev and say, that's what I think that's what our focus were. Not, I know that's what our focus was on a lot of these keys to victory was, where are they good? And where are you good? And the importance of you winning those matchups. But then also, where do they have some matchup advantages? Joe Otting versus, in his first start against their D tackles. You look at Dallas Golden and Devontae Smith against Mekhi Lemon. Those are areas where you say, I don't know that Notre Dame has the advantage there, which means you really have to play well in those situations, because if they can't dominate those matchups, then you've got a much better shot at winning.
Folks, that's going to do it for part 1 of today's show, but don't go anywhere. We're getting ready to dive into keys to victory. But before we get there, you know what to do. Make sure you hit that like button. You're subscribed to this channel. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the CFB Nation channel. Vince and I are going live tomorrow night on the CFB Nation channel for this week's edition of the Spread Option. We're going live at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure that you guys are subscribed to that channel as well. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. All right, Brian, in part two of today's show here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by FanDuel, we are talking keys to victory. And where we always start, we're two offensive guys, man. We're talking keys to victory for the Notre Dame offense. I know this first one doesn't need any introduction. Well, but Brian, when we go keys to victory, where we start?
Let me start here first before we even get to key number one, because what I like about this matchup, Trev, is this is the first time that I can remember where you went into this matchup back-to-back years where you could argue that Notre Dame's offense is either better, say were last year, or as good as USC offensively. And I think that's the case. A lot of years it's been your offense is good enough with how good your defense is to win this football game. What not enough people are talking about is what's USC's plan to stop Notre Dame? I mean, like, there's all this talk about, well, you know, USC is great on offense, and I'm like, yeah, they are. Like, I'm not even trying to kind of poo-poo what USC is doing. USC's doing some great things on offense this year, but it's kind of like, but what about Notre Dame? Like, what about how is USC going to stop Notre Dame? Because when I look and I see what's USC's points per game average this year against Power 5 opponents, it's 35.3. What's Notre Dame's points per game average against Power 5 opponents? 42.4. You know, right now USC's averaging 490.5 yards per game against Power 4 opponents. Notre Dame's averaging 480.8. And they've both played four. USC's played four. Notre Dame's played 5 Power 4 opponents. What's Notre Dame's yards per play against their 5 Power 4 opponents? It's 7.2 yards per play. What's USC's? 7.0. So again, USC is outstanding on offense this year. This is not meant to diminish USC. It's meant to point out that Notre Dame has a legitimately elite offense. With that being said, that's why, Trevor, you have to be on top of your game in a matchup like this. You have to say, no. You don't have the best offense on the field today. We do. And then go show it. And I think this is a chance, Trev, in my opinion. I'm curious your thoughts on this. If Notre Dame's offense can outshine USC's offense, then I think we start to get more national people talking about, hey, guys, we're not talking enough about this Notre Dame offense. And let's not also forget that there is one game where they have played the same opponent. And in that game, the Notre Dame offense scored 56 points and the USC offense scored 33 points. In that game, and I think USC scored 26 offensive points because they had a pick six, I believe, in that game. USC in that game against Purdue had 460 yards of offense, 6.8 yards per play. A week later, Notre Dame had 535 yards and 8.5 yards per play. So that's all sounds great, but that's why that puts pressure on you to say, hey, you have to go out there and show that you're the best offense on the field. Because if you don't, and you put all the burden on your own defense to have to shut down USC, that's how you get beat. So I think that needed to be said, Trev. Like, this is a legitimate elite offense at times this season. These are the kind of games where you've got to step up. Because at the end of the day, at the end of the year, if we're looking back like, hey, do you remember what they did at Purdue and you remember what they did to Arkansas? Well, yeah, but they didn't show up against Miami and they got shut down by USC. But hey, remember that game against NC State? No, these are the games where you define who you are. And even before we get into the keys, I think that needed to be said. As a key to victory, this offense has to be their best version of themselves and show it.
Oh, I agree completely. I mean, look, you can even look back at the last couple of years. Last 2 seasons, Notre Dame has put up over 30, they scored 34 points on offense in 2023 and 35 points on offense in 2024. But to your point, a lot of the attention has gone to USC's offense. Why? Because that's the sexy offense. It's Lincoln Riley. It's Mekhi Lemon. It's, they'll throw it all over the yard. And, like we talked about so many times on this channel, perception matters. But that's the opportunity in front of Notre Dame is now for the 3rd year in a row, Notre Dame can say that they had the better offense on the field in this matchup. I think that means something. And yes, I understand in 2023 still had Caleb Williams and you had the name brand players, but the results kind of speak volumes to who had the better offense on the field in both of those matchups. Like I said, 34 offensive points. That's without Xavier Watts' scoop and score on the fumble recovery and Jadarian Price's kick return for a touchdown in 2023. The offense still put up 34 points. Yep. And then last season, you take away the 2 pick sixes. At the end of the game, Notre Dame still scored 35 offensive points.
But and would have scored 49 if they didn't take those possessions away because of the pick sixes. USC was not. It was 35-21 at one point in time in the second half, I believe, correct? Because it was 21-21 at halftime, and I believe Notre Dame scored I'm actually going to look this up, but I believe Notre Dame scored twice in the second half. It was 14-14, at halftime. And then Notre Dame outscored USC 21-7 in the third quarter. It was 35-21 going into the fourth quarter. And then USC scored. They were driving again to tie it. But, you had the better offense last year. And it put USC in a we have to score every time mode, and eventually they made the big mistakes that cost you the ball games. So, yeah. Now, how do you play like that, Trev? Point number one, start fast.
Have to, especially after what you've done on offense the last couple of weeks. And I know some people get disgruntled when we talk about this, but the offense hit a little bit of a slump against Boise State and NC State. They were coming off of 2 games where they scored a combined 105 points. And then against Boise State, you put up 28 offensive points. And then against NC State, you put up 34. I'm not mad at the 34. Like we talked about before, Notre Dame is still the 14th ranked team in the country in points per game. It's not that they're bad. It's not that they're terrible. But if you come out and start the same way that you did against Boise State and have a turnover on downs in the red zone, or you're not able to follow up your fast start like they did against NC State, this USC offense is not going to let you hang around until you figure it out. This USC offense, look, the best way that I can explain it is this USC offense is not going to let it be a 7-6 ball game at some point like it was against Boise State, or a 7-7 ball game like it was against NC State. This offense is going to have just as much of a hand in making USC a one-dimensional football team as will the defense. That's why a fast start is going to be so imperative in this game. How do you make USC's offense? You pigeonhole them into being one-dimensional. Your offense is often humming like it was against Arkansas.
That's the game to point to. Yep, right there. Right there.
Plain and simple. Fast start.
Arkansas was moving the ball on Notre Dame early in that game. I mean, it was 14-10 at one point in time. They shot themselves in the foot a couple times. But those couple misses by them, and Notre Dame converted every non-score. So Arkansas comes down and scores a touchdown to make it, or a field goal to make it 14-10. And what does Notre Dame's offense do? Go right back down to score. Defense makes a stop. Notre Dame goes right back down to score, 35-10. Now all of a sudden, Arkansas is got to throw it mode. They throw it. Adon Schuler makes a guy miss, fumble. You go down. It's 42-10 or 42-13. Excuse me. They scored to make it 28-13, and then you respond with a touchdown. Same thing here. If your defense can hold them to some field goals, maybe have a stop or two, and your offense is just going right down the field, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. And all of a sudden you got 24, 27 points on the board at halftime. Maybe that takes USC out of their game a little bit. Or on the flip side, if your defense is struggling early in the game, you're keeping them in the game with points. And now they get a shot to go in there at halftime and adjust. If you're trailing USC by 10-plus points at halftime, with as good as Lincoln Riley is at halftime adjustments, you're in trouble. And the way to not be down 10 at halftime, your offense has got to keep scoring if your defense is struggling. You got to keep scoring. And if your defense is playing well early in the game, you then have to say, okay, we're going to give you some distance. And like Trev said, if it's 28-10 at halftime, let USC come out and run the ball 8 times in the first drive of the second half. Let them take 7-8 minutes off of the clock. Go for it. Thank you. And for shortening the game for us. And I think that's why a fast start is so important. And the other thing, too, is you got to let this USC team know, like, hey, guys, this ain't it. This ain't your year. Like, just let that confidence that they're going to have coming, and they're going to be confident coming into this game because they just physically kicked Michigan's butt last week. They're going to be very confident. And This offense needs to let them know very early on, hey, guys, we're not Michigan. We're not Purdue. We're not Illinois. We're not Michigan State. We're Notre Dame. And we play up here. Those teams play down here. And it's going to be a long day for you. They've got to do that early in this game. So important. Now, Trev, we can kind of talk about how to do that. And the first thing is push the tempo. And this goes to something you talked about yesterday. This is not a real deep USC team, nor is it a very big USC team. It's a long USC team, but not a real big USC team. Push the tempo, get them on their heels, wear them down. I think that's going to be an important part of this game.
Oh, absolutely. And that ties directly into starting fast. We've watched this Notre Dame offense the last couple of weeks push the tempo. We saw that against NC State. They had some big boys on their front seven. They were huffing and puffing by the tail end of Notre Dame's first drive of the game. And how'd they finish it? They punched it in the end zone. But if you're able to push the tempo, like I said yesterday, this is not a deep USC team. You go back and you look at the snap numbers on PFF. They don't do a whole lot of rotating. And if you're asking, these 6'5", 290-pound D linemen and a 6'6" linebacker and a 6'3" corner to rattle off 6 to 7 defensive plays in 2 minutes of real time, that's going to start to wear on them as the game goes on. It will. And that's also going to lead into, I looked before, while we were talking about fast starts, I looked at what the FanDuel numbers were for the first half spread. And they have Notre Dame scoring 17 points in the first half, USC 14 points. So they see this being a close game at halftime, despite Notre Dame still being a 10-point favorite. Notre Dame is still 9.5-point favorites on the spread. But a fast start and keeping them off balance, Notre Dame being able to run tempo will go a long way into Notre Dame scoring potentially 17, 18, 19, 20 first half points. That's going to be huge. But again, you have to use your athletic and speed advantages to your advantage, because this is a more athletic defense for USC than it was last year when they squared off. But that doesn't mean that they are now as athletic as Notre Dame's offense. Denbrock has to be able to push the pace, because if you're just going to line up across, USC's big front four, very long, they have a 6'6", 285-pound defensive end. You're gonna do what Michigan's offense did, played right into their hands. Hey, we're going to try to establish the game, control the line of scrimmage, which is something you have to do, but it will look different. And pushing the tempo is going to be absolutely huge and go a really long way as far as that's concerned. That is a huge key to victory, Brian.
I also think that you get USC out of sync defensively with that. You get them out of their pressure packages. You get their D-line on its heels a little bit. They're lining up. They got to get the call in quick, because they got – and again, we're not talking like breakneck, you're snapping the ball at 29 seconds. We're talking about going with some pace, going with some urgency, like we saw them do against Arkansas, like we saw them do at times against Purdue, like we saw them do at times against Boise State, and it worked. They moved the ball up and down the field. They just got to execute point number 5. We'll get to that. But I think that's a very important thing, Trev, because you get them out of what they want to do. They forces them to be more basic with their coverages, forces them to be more basic with their structures, and allows you to just go right at them with all your athletes. And I think it's something that maybe you don't need to do like every single drive, but a lot of the drive. And again, when we talk about pushing the tempo, we're not talking about being Oregon 2010. We're just talking about going with pace, going with some urgency, being willing to snap it right away. More 2 play calls. Like, hey guys, here's what we're going to do. If we're going to run this play, and then we're going to run. We're going to complete a pass, and if we complete this pass, then we're going to go line up and we're going to run so and so. Get the call in. And go. We're going to run counter. Get them on their heels. If we don't complete the pass, and we regroup and we line back up and we go again, and we've got a 2-play call in that way. So I think those are things that I would love to see Notre Dame do. And it's a way of being aggressive. It's a way of attacking USC. It's a way of getting USC on their heels. And it's a way of, if this is a close game in the fourth quarter, you're starting to lean on USC and you wear them down, and that's how you can put this game away.
Next key to victory, Brian, is Notre Dame is going to have to be great on first down. What we've seen from this offense the last couple of weeks is when they get off schedule, they've struggled. That's been one of the That's been one of the biggest things that's led to their offensive slump because they're still hitting explosive plays. To a degree, I understand why some fans are like, you think the offense is in a slump. Look at, I mean, this receiver had a 20-yard catch and this receiver had a 20-yard catch.
For them.
Yeah.
For them. Guys, like,
yeah.
Trev, I have to say this. Notre Dame fans, do me a favor. Stop holding this team to an inferior standard to who they are. This is not 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019, even 17, 16. This is not that team. They got one of the best offensive coordinators in the game. They've got one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks in the game. They have the best running back room in the game. They have arguably the best tight end in college football right now, one of the 5 to 6 best. They have one of the 5 to 10 best receiver rooms in college football right now, and they've got one of the 5 to 10 most talented offensive lines in the country right now. This is a different Notre Dame offense. This is a different standard. And Trev won't say it because he's too nice. We've got to stop, as Notre Dame fans, allowing ourselves to look at this team as if they're the Notre Dame of old. So when we talk about, are you playing to your potential? Are you struggling? It's not, they went to the college football playoff in 2018 and only averaged 30.9 points per game. And what happened when they got to the semifinals of that game? They lost 30-3. So I don't care that they scored a bunch of points against teams that sucked in 2018. The standard for this team is you are an elite unit, play like it. That's the standard. Did they play bad against NC State? No. Did they play bad against Boise State? No. But that's not the standard. And if you want to win a championship, these are the big games where you play championship football. So I'll say it. All the people that get all sad, and upset whenever we say they struggled against NC State and Boise State, you should say that. It doesn't mean they stink and this bench that guy. Mike Denbrock sucks. We're not saying any of those things. We're saying Mike Denbrock got brought here to have an elite top 5 offense. CJ Carr got recruited here to have a top 5 offense. You brought in Malachi Fields to have a top 5 offense. So when they don't play like a top 5 offense, they struggled. It's as simple as that. It's not, well, it's better than what they did in all these other years they didn't win a championship, because that's not the standard. And this team is capable of being elite, especially against teams like Boise State and NC State. So, yes, they struggled. So, Trev, I'm going to allow you to continue, but I just had to say that because that's been just kind of getting at me all week as I watch people on X and on the boards be like, but they still did this, but they still did that. Okay, great. But shouldn't they have done this, and this? Shouldn't they have scored 42 against Boise State instead of 28? Shouldn't they have scored 52 against NC State instead of 36? Yeah, they had 485 yards. Should have had 540. I mean, that's what you were capable of in a game like that. And against a team like this, you're going to have to be that team. So, yes, I think it needs to be said to be that team. And Trev, as you were saying before I interrupted you to go on my little tangent, because I just needed to say it, staying on schedule is going to be huge against USC. Being great on first down, moving the chains on first down, but getting into second and shorts where you can run the ball, pass the ball, play action, bootleg, you've got the whole thing in front of you. You get across midfield and you're in 3rd and 2, take a shot because you can go for it on 4th and 2, but you don't get into 3rd and 2 if you're not great on first down, and then obviously that gets you into some great second down situations. And that's how you stay on schedule. And that's how you play like the elite offense this team is capable. I mean, when this team is rolling, Trev, you're like, when was the last time they've been in the 3rd down? I mean, that's what this team is capable of. Like, dude, it's been a minute since this team's faced a 3rd down. I remember texting you guys in the Arkansas game, like, you guys know this is the first time they've faced a 3rd down since the first series of the game. And it was like 35-13 at that point in time. It's like, they haven't been in a 3rd down in a while. This team is capable of that. And that's when this team is rolling, they're great on first down.
Well, part of being great on first down happens. A lot of people talk execution, and yes, you got to run the right route. You have to block the right person. CJ has to make the right read. Running back has to hit the right hole. But a lot of their success on first down and lack thereof has been them shooting themselves in the foot. False start puts you behind the sticks. Holding call brings back a big play. I mean, those are some of the things that Notre Dame's offense is going to have to eliminate. Part of being great on first down is not just getting gains at 25 every single time they face a first down. It's not ripping off a 30-yard run every first down. Would be nice. Wouldn't be upset if that happened. But you have to eliminate the self-inflicted penalties. I draw back to the Boise State game. Was the officiating in that game horrible? Yes, it was. But if it was better officiating, it doesn't mean that Notre Dame ends a game with 0 penalties called. They're not the Kansas City Chiefs, okay, who ended with 0 yards and 0 penalties in their Sunday night game. But with that being said, Notre Dame still found ways to shoot themselves in the foot in crucial moments, down in the red zone, on first down, putting them behind the sticks. Because what we've seen from this offense the last 2 weeks is once they get off schedule, the minute they get off schedule, the drive is essentially over. And why that's and Brian is because that's glimpses of what we saw from this unit last year. Last year, if this offense got off schedule because of the skill set that you had at the quarterback position, you're likely not picking up a 3rd and 11 because you kind of just have to hope that Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love, or Jadarian Price rip off a 12-yard run. That was the state of the union for this offense. This year, it's a little bit different. You have a quarterback that can push the ball down the field vertically. Just don't put yourself in position where you're having to ask him to do it on 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, or I guess in the Boise State game, 3rd and 25, or 3rd and 20, or 2nd and 17. Winning on first down is going to be absolutely huge. It's going to be one that they're going to have to do. And one of the ways that you do that is our 4th key to victory, Brian. They're going to have to win on the perimeter. And if I'm reading you correctly, that's in both the run and the pass game winning.
Yeah, it is. And this particular one, obviously winning on the perimeter can be the difference between a 12-yard gain and a 50-yard gain in the run game. That's obviously important. The other part of it, Trev, is making plays on the perimeter in the pass game is going to make life easier for your run game. Because USC, in my opinion, is probably going to come into this game thinking we can't let Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price go off. Like, look, CJ Carr threw for a bunch of yards last week, but the offense sputtered because they couldn't run the ball and couldn't put in the end zone. You've got to say, hey, look, we'll give up the big pass play as long as they don't score. And then we get them in the red zone and they're going to struggle like that. They're going to have a lot of keys that like we've been talking about in the past with Notre Dame's defense. Like, look, man, they're going to get big plays. Just don't let them get touchdowns. And then you've got a shot to shut them down in the red zone. Well, that's what teams are saying now. Like, look, if they go for 50, you better hope you push them out of bounds to the 12 because then you got a shot to keep them from scoring because the way this team has been in the red zone at times this year. So you've got to win on the perimeter. You win on the perimeter, then that's going to force USC to play you more straight up. It's going to force you to play more bounce. And then that's how your run game gets going. And so and then there's just going to be times where it's like, look, in a game like this, Trev, it's a big game. It's a rivalry game. It's your last big test before the bye. It's that game that if you win this game, you are now sort of back in control of your own destiny to a degree, something you weren't after the A&M loss. And you know, it's one of those things where your dude's got to make plays in games like this. That means Malachi Fields has got to step up and make plays. It means Jordan Faison, who's been great all year, has to be great in this game. It means Eli Raridan's got to make some plays on the perimeter. You know, hopefully you put Jaden Greathouse in the game. He makes some plays on the perimeter. Will Paulding's got to make plays on the perimeter. KK Smith, get back to Jeremiah Love in the pass game. You've got to be able to force USC to defend for width and vertical. And, you know, look, they're going to throw the ball down the field. I mean, that's who Mike Denbrock is. He, you know, with this team, I don't know that that's who Mike Denbrock always is. He doesn't always like want to throw a million deep shots, but if he's got the team to do it, he'll do it. Like we saw at LSU a couple of years ago, like we saw at Notre Dame in 2015. He loved calling deep shots in 2015 for Notre Dame. He loved calling deep shots for LSU, but he likes to call smart deep shots where you've got good matchups and then your guys got to go win plays. That's what good coaches do. And if you look at the numbers, Trev, CJ Carr this year has thrown 38 passes of 20 yards or more in only 6 games. He's on pace for 72 in the regular season. Last year, Riley Leonard only threw 43 deep shots in 16 games. They're only 5 deep shots behind last year's offense through 6 games. That's who you are. So if you're not winning on the perimeter in this game, then you're not doing well in the areas that have fueled your offense so far this season. That's the other reason. So it's keep doing what you're doing. It's getting those big plays. It's softening up the USC defense. And if you do all those things, that's going to make life a lot easier on Notre Dame's ability to run the football. None of these keys that we have are about dominate the line of scrimmage and run the football, because that's a given. You've got to be able to do that. What are the things you can do to give yourself a better chance to run the football? It's the start. It's the tempo. It's getting them on their heels. It's being great on first down. That's going to mean running the ball effectively, winning on the perimeter. It's going to loosen them up and give you more room, because if you can spread USC out, get those creases going, that's when Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love are at their best. They're not power backs. They're find a crease and rip a team apart. And that's also why Notre Dame has been so much better running the football out of 11 personnel than they have been out of 12 personnel this year. And it's forcing them to defend the width and length of the field. And if you can do that, the run game will eventually get going. If it doesn't get started right away, it may get started right away. But even if it does, then okay, now all of a sudden USC puts extra guys in the box and says, well, we're going to outnumber you in the box. Now you've got to go win on the perimeter. So however way this shakes out, whether the perimeter plays have to open up the run game or the perimeter plays have to protect the run game because it's going well, you got to win on the perimeter all game long, because that's who you are. And when you lose games like this, when you're not being who you are. And so that's why I think it's imperative that they do that.
Last key to victory on offense, Brian, and this is one that is going to be imperative in this matchup. You got to finish. You have to find a way to finish your drives. And there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, you look at Notre Dame's offense in the last two games, they're 0-4 on fourth down, and I believe all four have been inside of the red zone. You have to find a way to finish. What does that look like? Maybe that's just accepting a field goal on this drive. I don't want Notre Dame to win this game by kicking 7 field goals. Stick with who your identity is. Marcus Freeman talked about that earlier this week in his press conference. That's part of his identity. That's something, especially if the numbers are telling him, something that he wants to do. And I'm also for that. Then you get into the how conversation. How are you going to start finishing these drives? Because it can't just be a rinse and repeat of what you try to do against Boise State, and it can't be a rinse and repeat of what you try to do against NC State. Notre Dame put up almost 400 total yards of offense against Boise State, put 28 points on the board. Their issue is not moving the ball from 20 to 20. It's what happens the second they get inside of the red zone. Finishing drives is going to be absolutely huge. What all goes into that? It's staying away from the stupid penalties. It's not getting a false start on 1st and 10 from the 19. That pushes you outside of the red zone. It's not having a boneheaded holding call on something that just on a player that didn't need to be held. It's designing plays and calling the correct plays. It's all of that factors into Notre Dame being able to finish drives, because if you're leaving points out on the board against this offense, we're getting ready to talk keys to victory for Notre Dame's defense. But if you're leaving points out on the field against this team and against this offense, it's not going to be as easy to overcome as it was against NC State and Boise State. It just won't. And so this offense is going to have to do an exceptional job this week of finishing drives. Has to.
I mean, and finishing drives requires a lot of things, Trevor. It's finishing off big plays, winning more contested catches, finish off those plays. Will Pauling, be more aggressive going up for the football. Jordan Faison, be more aggressive going up for the football. Finishing off blocks. Don't let a guy get off late and then get to the running back for a 4-yard gain when it should have been he gets past that guy and he's in space. Finishing off blocks inside, finishing off blocks in the perimeter, finishing off runs. And like last week, a perfect example last week of what I mean by finishing. I didn't think Jeremiah Love was reading the defense very well, especially in the first half. He was impatient. He was missing holes. But you know what Jeremiah Love did every time he carried the football? He finished. He was running hard. He was running guys over. Like, okay, cool. You hit that guy in the hole, and instead of you trying to make a move or you taking contact and get tackled for 2, you run him over and then fall forward for 2 more. That's 4 yards. So instead of a 2nd and 8, it's 2nd and 6. That's a better situation for you. It's all of it, Trev. All of those things. Finish, 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 finish. Be smart. Don't get penalties when it's 3rd and goal at the 1, that move you back to the 6. It's all encompassing when you talk about it. But the end result is when you get in the red zone, you score touchdowns. For as good as Notre Dame is on offense, Trev, and if you look at the statistics, I mean, Notre Dame is right now on offense, they are so good in so many areas, Trevor. Let me just pull up a few of these stats to kind of show you guys what I'm talking about. So let me just pull up here real quick. So right now in college football, you look at Notre Dame's offense, and they are right now at this present moment, they are, let's see, Notre Dame, they are 14th in scoring at 40 points per game. If you look at where they are against Power 5 teams, they're second. The only team that's ahead of them is North Texas, who scored 59 points against Washington State. So really, they're number one. When you look at Notre Dame when it comes to total offense right now, they rank 19th in the country in total offense, passing offense and as far as yards, but they ranked 8th in passer rating. They rank 4th in yards per attempt, 0.1 behind USC. You look at them against Power 5 teams, you know where they rank in yards per attempt, Trevor? Numero uno. There's only one other team above 10. Notre Dame's at 10.7. You know, you look at passer rating, Notre Dame's 4th. And two of the teams that are ahead of them have only played one game against Power 5 teams. That's North Texas, and that's UNLV. And UNLV, the only Power 5 opponent they played was UCLA. And that was pre-Tim Skinner, so back when they were terrible. You look at total offense, and as mentioned, Notre Dame right now is 21st in power in the country. But you go against in just Power 4 games, they're 7th in college football. You look at them in yards per play, they're 2nd in college football, behind only Old Dominion in games against Power 4 opponents. You look at Notre Dame when you look at their rush offense this season and how that's been. They are 35th in yards per attempt. That's an area where you could get a little bit better in those areas. They're 21st in third downs, right? I mean, so we kind of keep going and going and going on how good this offense has been. 9th in yards of plays of 30 yards or more this season. And if you look at just Power 5 games, they are 1st. In their 5 Power 5 games, they've had 17 plays of 30 yards or more. Only Baylor, who at 15 has more. All sounds great, right, Trev? All right. So what's the problem, Brian? Do you know where Notre Dame ranks in red zone offense right now, Trev?
82nd.
Yep. So if you if you just look at Power 4 games, they're 73rd in touchdown defense against all in all games. Notre Dame right now is 29th in touchdown percentage in the red zone. Man, if you're just think about where Notre Dame would be, they're scoring over 40 points a game, and they're 84th in college football in the red zone. They're not a top 25 team in red zone touchdown percentage. If you're a top 15 team in red zone percentage, you are scoring 44, 45 points a game because you'd have had over 40 against Boise State. You might have had over 50 against NC State. And, so that's kind of where I'm at. Like, that's why finishing is so important. And in a game like this, against an offense like that, it's imperative. Arkansas, another high-scoring team with a talented offense. Notre Dame's defense held them to 2 field goals in the first half. 2 stops, 1 touchdown. Notre Dame's touchdowns every time. You know what that meant? 42-13 at halftime. This won't be 42-13 at halftime, but you could be up 28-13 at halftime. You could be up 35-17 at halftime if you can do what you need to do and move the ball and finish off drives. But there's a lot of things that go into that, and that's what's got me excited about what this team can do, but they got to step up and do it, Trev. They got to step up and do it.
We won't have to wait that much longer to figure out if they are going to make that happen or not, which is something that I am excited for. But that's going to do it for part 2 of today's show here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Don't go anywhere. We're getting ready to talk keys to victory on defense. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel and you have that notification bell hit so you know whenever we go live. Whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, we would greatly appreciate a 5-star review. And as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. All right, Brian, on the final part of today's show here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by FanDuel, we're talking keys to victory for the Notre Dame defense. And again, like it is every week, this is the hot topic of discussion, especially when you factor in they're going against the 3rd-ranked scoring offense in the country, the 2nd-ranked total yards offense in the country, and the 1st-ranked offense in the country in yards per game.
All those areas where I talked about how good Notre Dame is, USC is either right ahead of them or right below them. And yes, they are very good on offense. Like my point earlier in the show, Trevor, was not to say like USC's offense is overrated. They are a legitimately elite offense so far this year. I just think Notre Dame is as good or better, and they got to play like it. And from a USC standpoint, if they're going to win this game, they need their offense to play like it, which means for Notre Dame, you need to make sure that they just need to make them look like just a good offense. Do that and you win the game. If they look like an elite offense for 60 minutes, then you may not win the game.
This is one of those games where, and again, I'm not saying that my expectation is this, and I'm not saying that I hope that this happens. But these are one of the games where I'm not going in expecting this defense to hold USC's offense to 7 points. That's a relatively good spot to be in because, when they face Boise State's offense and NC State's offense to a degree, I wasn't expecting the performance against Arkansas, but the expectation was, hey, you need to look like what you need to look like for when USC comes to town. Mm-hmm. It's all relative. So the expectation isn't that Notre Dame's defense holds this USC offense to 7 points. If they do, we're going to have a heck of a time on the postgame. But the expectation is you have to do your job. You have to.
If they hold USC to 7 points or less, I will dance on the postgame show. Yes.
Oh.
I will dance. You will see me dancing on the postgame show. I'm not say it right now. Bam, there we go.
Okay.
Might even sing. We'll see. But I will dance in the postgame show if Notre Dame.
How about this? You'll dance. Sean Davis will sing, and we'll have ourselves a fun time on the postgame show. I'm nominating Sean Davis to sing. So
there you go. If I can't promise that Sean will sing because I don't want to hold him to something that he didn't agree to. But if Notre Dame wins this game and holds USC to 7 points or less, you will see me dancing in the postgame show.
If Notre Dame's defense holds USC's offense to 7 points, I'll kick off the show by singing the fight song.
Well, it's on record now officially, Trev. You'll sing the fight song, and I'll be dancing to it. So, yeah.
Well, here's the hoping that happens, right? Like, yeah, I hope that happens. But in order for that to
that might be enough for me to be embarrassed for Chris Ash, who probably hates my guts, to want to go out there and have a great game plan. So yes.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But in order for some of those things to happen, for Notre Dame's defense in all seriousness to play the game that they are capable of, there's a lot of keys to victory that they're going to have to focus on. And the first one, it's crazy to say, but you can't pull an Al Golden. You have to be aggressive in this game, Brian. That's going to be huge.
It is. And aggressive means a lot of things. Aggressive doesn't mean you're blitzing 7 guys every time. It doesn't. Because if you do that against USC, they're going to kill you because they have a great screen game. And there has to be a level of discipline with that aggressiveness because you have to handle the tight end screen game. You have to handle the quick pop routes that they'll throw behind the blitz. You have to be able to handle the running back screen game, the running back swings. Aggressiveness isn't just blitz all night. We've said that. That's a very shallow way of looking at aggressiveness. Aggressiveness is about exactly that. It's about being aggressive in everything that you do. If you're bringing a 4-man pressure, then be aggressive with how you attack the receivers in coverage. Be aggressive with how your defensive linemen attack. Be aggressive with how your linebackers play the run game downhill. But you also can't just go flying downhill 100 miles an hour because then all of a sudden cutbacks open up and there's big plays down the field. So there has to be a level of discipline, but it's just about taking the fight to USC. Somebody in the chat earlier asked a great question, and the question that they asked was, it's somebody reported that the USC gets the ball, and it's hard to get after the quarterback when they get the ball out that quickly. And how do you handle that? And I'm like, yeah, be aggressive. And we saw that last week at NC State. CJ Bailey came into that game completing over 70% of his passes. Why? Because he throws the ball quick a lot. It's a rhythm-based offense, a lot like USC. It's getting the ball out quickly. Well, how did they take that away? By being aggressive in their coverages, by playing up in their tight coverages, by taking away the quick game, taking away, those type of things, and not letting him just get into a rhythm, and then force Jaden Maeva to go through his reads. Illinois did a pretty good job of that at times in that game. Now there were times when USC was able to beat them, but that they were forced to throw the ball down the field a little bit more that game, or try to throw the ball down the field a little bit more that game. And that created more mistakes. That created more incompletions in that game. And so I think that's an area where you have to be more effective. I mean, Purdue did a pretty good job of that. Like, look, the 2 games against Power 4 teams where he was less than 70% throwing, they scored 26 and 32 offensive points. They threw the ball a lot, threw the ball 43 times. 8.5 yards per attempt against Illinois. But you created enough mistakes where you could get in some third downs and get them out of those situations, Trev. So, but it's just about an overall mindset, attacking the football. You're not going to force turnovers if you're not aggressive. You're not going to stop the run if you're not aggressive. This is a big USC offensive line. And if you're just kind of playing that read and react mess we saw against Miami and A&M, they're going to run the ball down your throat all game. All game. They're going to be getting up to the second level, getting on Drake Bowen, getting on Kingston, getting on Jaden Osbury, and just gashing you with the runs. 5 yards, 7 yards, and then that cutback hits for 25. It's just about an aggressive mindset that says we are going to dictate how this game goes to you, not the other way around. And here's why it's important in this game. We have evidence of why this works. The last 3 years, when they went and played out in L.A., Al Golden played a passive defense. More zone coverage. And again, this isn't a zone versus man thing. Zone for Notre Dame back then was a passive thing because they didn't do it a whole lot. It wasn't something they were good at. Not as many blitzes. Remember, they played a lot of 3 down against USC in 2022, and USC just ran all over them. And Caleb was throwing quick game all game. They threw one deep ball at Benjamin Morris, and he almost picks it. They don't throw at him again the rest of the game. And they didn't have Cam Hart, Tariq Bracy, but they just ran it all over him. If you play passive, Lincoln Riley will run it down your throat all game when he feels he has a certain type of team. And this team, he's not afraid to run it with. Well, they're missing their top 2 backs. Did you watch King Miller last week against Michigan? He ripped Michigan up. He Timmy Smithed them. So, hopefully he is Timmy Smith and he doesn't do it again this week, but he looked good last week. So I think that's what we're talking about, Trev. But what did he do in 2023? He attacked Caleb Williams all game long, took away the quick game. How many times did you see Caleb Williams do this and then hold the ball? Where he wanted to get rid of it and he held the ball. There's a play where they're running a seam route. Lake McCree is wide open, but there's pressure in his face. And so Caleb has to kind of short arm it. It sails and Xavier Watts picks it off. Should have been a big play for USC. But because they brought pressure, he sails the ball. Xavier Watts picks it off, runs it back inside the 5. Open receiver, you brought pressure, quarterback misses. Well, if you can do that to Caleb Williams, you don't think you can do that to Jaden Maeva? Illinois did that. And that's how you shut this team down, Trev. You've got to be more willing, in my opinion, to take the fight to USC, knowing they're going to make some plays. It's okay. USC's going to make some plays, just like Texas A&M was going to make some plays. But when you play passive, you give them they're still going to make those normal plays they're going to make, but now you're giving them the 12, the 15s all game. And if you do that against USC, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in a lot of trouble. And they can't allow that to happen.
If they're able to stay aggressive, Brian, that's going to follow right into our second key to victory for this unit, and it's dominating the line of scrimmage. Specifically shutting down the run game like you alluded to, and then getting after Jaden Maeva. But I cannot stress in this matchup how imperative stopping the run is. And yes, I know that they're without Wayman Jordan and Eli Sanders. But if you go back and you look in the last 3 years of this matchup, really this Notre Dame-USC rivalry under Marcus Freeman, when Notre Dame has been able to stop the run, the game is just not competitive. Unfortunately, they've only done it once. In 2023, USC ran the ball for 109 yards on 37 attempts, averaged 2.9 yards a carry. You look at the game in 2022 that Notre Dame lost to USC. USC finished the game with 204 rushing yards to average 5.2 yards a carry. One of the reasons why the game was close last year in the Coliseum is USC ended the day with 197 rush yards, but on 28 attempts, they averaged 7 yards a carry. When Notre Dame has been able to stop this run game, USC does not have a lot of success on offense. Again, that goes back to the making this team one-dimensional conversation. Offense is going to play a hand in it, but what's the defense's role? It's dominating the line of scrimmage, and that's going to be absolutely huge in this one, Brian. They're going to have to stop this run game, regardless of who they're handing it off to, whether it's Brian Jackson or King Miller, or if some other – I saw a tweet that both of their true freshman running backs are also activated for this game as well. They're going to be available. So with this offensive line, it's kind of one of those, hey, if you put a running back there and the offensive line is doing their job, they're going to get their yards, and you have to prevent them from doing that. It's going to be absolutely huge.
USC this season, Trevor, has – so looking at their run game, let's see here. Let me pull up their run game numbers. In their first game of the year, they rushed for 233 yards, 7.8 per carry, and they scored 73 points. Game 2, they go for 9.4 yards per carry, 309 yards, and they scored 59 points. Game number 4, they rushed for 289 yards, 7.2 yards per carry, scored 45 points on Michigan State. Last week against Michigan, 6.2 yards per carry, 224 yards, and 36 on 36 attempts, so 6.2 yards per carry, and they scored 31 points. And those 31 points, they should have had more. I mean, that's just the reality of it. They should have had more success putting the ball in the end zone. They turned it over twice, which we'll get to that. 2 other games to point to. I left a couple games out, Trev. Do you know what games I left out? It's Purdue. What happened that game? They ran for 4.5 yards per carry, had 178 yards, but on 40 carries, they only scored 26 offensive points. Illinois left that game out too, right, Trev? They scored 3.7 points and only scored 32 points, and they needed a big fourth quarter, like second half comeback to come back from that. They were down, I think, 24-10 at one point in time because they couldn't run the ball. It's not that complicated. Make them one-dimensional. And like, look, yeah, Jaden Maeva hit some big passes on you last year, but eventually you were able to get to him. But you need to dominate the line of scrimmage to be able to shut down the run and make them one-dimensional. But at the same time, if you're dominating line of scrimmage and shut down the run, that's going to then open up opportunities for you to also get after Jaden Maeva. And, we could do a key like, make him uncomfortable like we did with CJ Bailey last week. But this is kind of all part of that. If you're shutting down the run game because you're dominating line of scrimmage, then you're going to be getting pressure on Jaden Maeva. The longer you can force him to hold the football with key number 1, the more he's going to make mistakes, the more chance you have to get to him. You want to go back and look when Jaden Maeva makes mistakes, it's when he's not throwing in rhythm. Go look at the Michigan game. Look at the pick he threw. They forced him out of the pocket. He's on the run. He just kind of chucks a pass downfield, and Michigan picks it off inside the 10. All right, that was a big turnover. And you look at last year's game. What happened on the 2 picks? The second pick he had especially, but both picks he had, pressure was coming. He thought he had to get rid of the ball. He didn't throw an accurate pass. Makes the mistake, throws a pick. A lot of his turnovers this year are when he's getting pressured. And they're gonna have to get after him. And it's not about, as we showed with CJ Bailey last week, it's not even just getting a sack or a hit on him. If he feels like everything's collapsing around me, he's going to start rushing his throws. It's exactly what Caleb Williams did to Notre Dame they did to Caleb Williams a couple years ago. And so Notre Dame is going to have to be able to dominate the line of scrimmage in this game. And that's going to have to be earned because this is a good USC offensive line. It's, in my opinion, the best offensive line we've seen from USC in at least 4 or 5 years. That's kind of my takeaway. But you had 6 sacks against USC in 2023. You had 2 in 2022, and you had 1 last year.
Speaking of Jaden Maeva throwing in rhythm, I looked at some numbers as well. Part of him throwing in rhythm is he relies very heavily on play action passes.
Mm-hmm.
He's completing 75.4% of his passes. He's gone 49 to 65 off of play action, throwing 7 touchdowns. Now, that doesn't mean that he's bad when there's not play action, but a lot of it just goes back to him being in rhythm. He's completing 69.2% of his passes, not on play action.
Really good when he can sit in the pocket with time and get in rhythm.
He is. It's all the more reason he is. It's all the more reason why Notre Dame, this key to victory is so huge. And yes, be aggressive needs to be the first one because that's overarching.
Mm-hmm.
But I would argue this is 1B. You have to be able to dominate the line of scrimmage in this game for both of those reasons. But Brian, the third key to victory for Notre Dame's defense in this one, you have to be able to handle USC's tight ends. I've been high on Lake McCree since the start of the offseason. He's averaging the most yards per catch out of any USC pass catcher with over 5 receptions. They have a pair of really good tight ends out in Los Angeles. They're going to have to handle business against those two. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, the tight ends in the run game are going to be impactful, but really the big thing here is the tight end in the passing game, Trev. If you look at what they've done, Walker Lyons is a former top recruit. Like he was a big-time football player, went on a mission, a Mormon mission, came back, and him and Lake McCree form a very underrated pass receiving duo this season. And then you look at their numbers, Trev. Lake McCray Lake McCree's third on the team in catches with 144. He's third on the team in yards with 289. Of their regulars, he's their top player in yards per catch, 20.6 yards per catch. But then Walker Lyons has 12 catches. He's fourth on the team in catches. He's fourth in the team in yards, 149 yards, 12.4 per catch, 2 touchdowns. So their 2 primary touchdowns this year, or tight ends this year, Trev, have 26 catches for 400. I'm trying to do the math. 438 yards and 3 touchdowns in 6 games. The tight end is a major weapon for USC this year. And Jaden Maeva just seems to be real comfortable. Last year, Lake McCree in 10 games caught 24 passes for 245 yards. Their number 2 tight end, Walker Lyons, caught 6 passes for 36 yards. That means last year they caught 30 passes, Trevor, for less than 300 yards for the entire season. They're going to triple that up this year, at least triple that up this year. You have to have a plan for that. You can't let their tight ends gash you, because I could see it now, Trev. You're shutting down the run game. You're keeping Mekhi Lemon out. It's 3rd and 12, and Walker Lyons beats somebody, or Lake McCree beats somebody up the seam for an 18-yard gain. They're going to make some plays, but you can't let them rip you up. And they're going to watch the Boise State game a couple weeks ago and say, there's some tight end screen opportunities against Notre Dame. They run tight end screens. You're going to have a plan for that. The tight ends, you could have a great game plan to slow down Mekhi Lemon and shut down Jacoby Lane. But if you let these guys go off, they can do just as much damage as the other receivers.
They're 100% going to have to be accounted for, and there's going to be a lot of stress put on the linebackers underneath and then the safeties handling the seams. I wrote, and I'll have an article coming out, I believe on Friday, talking about what Tate Johnson is going to have to do against these 2 tight ends, specifically Lake McCree. Because like I said, he's averaging over 20 yards a catch this season. This is going to be a big matchup for them, really big. Next key to victory, Brian, that we're going to talk about is Notre Dame is going to have to limit USC's big plays. This is an explosive offense like we've talked about before. Explosive plays are classified as pass plays of 20 yards or longer and run plays of 10 yards or longer. On the season, USC has 40 rushes of 10 yards or longer. That ranks 19th in the country. They have 31 pass plays of 20 yards or longer. That ranks 4th in the country. This is a very explosive offense, and one that's going to have to be contained by this Notre Dame defense.
You said they have how many plays of 10 yards or more in the run game, and they rank what?
40, and they rank 19th.
They rank 77th in college football in rushing attempts with 213. So basically 1 out of every 5 USC runs is going for 10 yards or more. And if you take away sacks and scrambles out of that, it's more than that. And so that's a great stat, Trev. Look, USC is going to get some big plays in this game. It's going to happen. They're going to get it. But look, just like NC State, very similar to where NC State was last week. NC State was a top 10 offense in yards and big plays of 30 yards or more last week. And Notre Dame was able to shut them down. Did you completely shut them down? No, they had a 45-yard touchdown, a 26-yard gain, and a 20-yard gain. They completely shut them down, but you held them to 3. USC is going to get 3 or 4 big plays in this game. You just got to make sure it's not 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, that's going to be the big key. What was A&M was do you remember what the number was for them? They were like almost double digits, if not in double digits, of gains of 15, 20 yards or more against Notre Dame. You can't let it be that. That's what you have to look. Every good offense is going to have the occasional big play. You got to make sure that it's a small number. If you can count them on one hand at the end of the game, that's probably a good thing for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Because you can dominate 60, dominate 50, dominate 70. Like, that's what you can't allow to happen.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame's defense against Texas A&M gave up over 240 yards of offense on 7 plays.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number that sticks in my head. I could be wrong on that. I'll have to go back through and look, but they are helped out by the fact that they had like an 85-yard touchdown. So that does help out that number. But again, still in 6 other plays, you allowed 160 total yards of offense. All feeding back to the main point, you have to limit big plays, especially offenses that are more than capable. And this USC offense, like the numbers tell us, are more than capable of hitting those big explosive plays, Brian.
Yep.
That
doesn't include the 11-yard, the touchdown pass on 4th and goal from the 11. You can't, Yeah.
Got to
You
be
can't allow those
disciplined.
big plays. Yep.
The last key to victory on defense, Brian, and this is something that the Notre Dame defense has gotten really good at doing, especially over the last couple of weeks. They have to be able to get the football.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to force turnovers in this game. One of the biggest reasons why the 2023 game wasn't close in the slightest was that Notre Dame turned the football over, 5 times in that game? 2 forced fumbles, 1 return for a touchdown, 3 interceptions. Those are going to be crucial in this game. It's one of the best ways to set your offense up with a short field. I talked about how Notre Dame's offense in 2023 scored 34 points on offense. A lot of those drives came on short field. So it's not like they put up 34 points of offense and every single drive was a 10-play, 75-yard drive. The defense had a big hand in them being able to do that as well. So being able to turn the football over is going to be absolutely huge in this matchup. Absolutely huge. Notre Dame is coming off of what? They had 4 interceptions against Boise State, 3 against NC State. Going to have to force Jaden Maven to turn the football over. He's done a really good job this season of taking care of the football. Only 2 interceptions on the year.
Well, he has, and part of that is because teams haven't been able to get to him. They haven't been able to pressure him. As we talked about, as he just sits in the pocket, he won't make a lot of mistakes. You watch Jaden Maeva play. If he's going 1-2 throw, 1 throw, just first reads there, second reads there, and he's throwing in rhythm, he's going to rip you up. I mean, that's not even a debate. It's just what it's going to happen. He's going to rip you up. But if you can, again, these all are building blocks. Be aggressive. Throw different looks at him. Don't let him have quick game all day. Don't let him have, get to his second read all day, because you're not rerouting. You're not being aggressive. You're not closing down, zones. You're not getting to him. You're not pressuring him. You're letting the run game go. He's 2nd and 2 all day, 2nd and 3, 2nd and 4 all day. His tight ends are wide open up the seams. If you're giving up the big plays because he's sitting in the pocket ripping you up, then it's going to be a long flipping day. And that's what's happened to a lot of teams. And that's what Notre Dame struggled with the first few games. I mean, they had 2 turnovers forced against Purdue. One of those was, I think were they both in the second half? I think they were both in the second half. You had 1 forced turnover against Texas A&M. You only had 3 forced turnovers in the first 3 games. You had 2 against Arkansas. That was a nice job. But then the last 2 weeks, you've had 7. And that's an area where they have to be good. So the interception part is key. But Notre Dame's only forced 1. Well, they've only had, I think, 1. They've only recovered 1 fumble all year. And USC, on the other hand, has fumbled the ball 6 times this season and have lost 3 of them, 1 of them, or 5 of them. So Notre Dame, on the other hand, has only forced 3 fumbles. So that's an area that I want to see Notre Dame get better at. Now, Purdue, Arkansas, Boise State were those 3 forced fumbles. They're going to put the ball on the ground. They just do. You've got to get the ball. You got to do that, and you got to get the ball. You got to be aggressive going after the ball, right? I mean, Michigan did that last week. They had a nice little seam route over the middle. Tight end catches. He's going. DB comes in, knocks the ball out, kills the drive. Because that's what I say. Like the 31-13 wasn't as close as the game actually. The game wasn't as close as the score looked like. That should have been a 2 more touchdown game for USC. They destroyed Michigan last week, and so I just think you've got to be able to get the ball. Again, get Jaden Maven out of the pocket. Do that, he'll make mistakes. Get him thrown off of his back foot. Do that, he'll make mistakes. How do I know that? Because he did it at UNLV. He did it at USC last year. And the only success he's had this year, the only success teams have had this year in stopping him is doing just that, getting him out of the pocket. Not letting him roll out on his own, but you force him out, and then he starts to kind of panic a little bit and throws a pick like he did against Michigan last week. Inside the 10-yard line, another potential scoring drive that was negated. You've got to do that. You've got to do that. Because usually I say, well, look, limit big plays and make this team go 8-9 plays and score. Well, USC's capable of doing that. So when they make those mistakes, the 3-4 times where you've got a shot to make a play, you're going to have about 3 or 4 shots to make a play in this game. And if you can do that, then you've got a chance to get the ball. And if you can get the ball and your offense can go score, then that's how you win this game and win this game big.
Turning over the football, too, forcing turnovers would go a long way in preventing Jaden Maeva from hitting his over in passing yards. Right now on FanDuel, his over-under is set at 281.5, which, again, pretty hefty considering you're going up against Notre Dame's defense, who's done pretty well the last couple of weeks. But you go and you look at some of the numbers of Jaden Maeva, kind of makes sense as to why the number is what it is. Definitely.
Trev, I'm actually curious about that. What is his number? What's his number you said?
281.5.
Oh boy, that's a lot. What is Mekhi Lemons?
His over-under receiving yards, let me pull it up real quick.
I'd like to get his, Lane's, Jacoby's, and Luke's, or Lake's, if you don't mind. I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, his Mekhi Lemons over-under in receiving yards is, where'd he go? There he is, 85.5.
Oh boy, okay.
Jacoby Lane's over-under is set at 52.5.
Okay.
And Lake McCree's is set at 25.5.
Okay, interesting. So interesting stuff from FanDuel. What's CJ Carr's? I'm very curious about that. What's CJ Carr's number this week on FanDuel?
285.5.
Ooh, okay.
And his touchdown passing line is set at 2.5. So they're expecting, now it's in the plus for 2.5, but they think that he'll throw in between 2 and 3 touchdown passes this week.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. And is Malachi's 50-something the most that they have?
For Notre Dame's receivers? No, it's Jordan Faison.
Oh, and what's his?
Jordan Faison's over-under set at 61.5. Malachi Fields is set at 51.5. Pauling is 44.5. Raridan is 36.5. Jeremiah Love is 19.5.
So they expect the ball to get spread around a lot more than USC.
That's it's pretty indicative of how it's been all season.
When was the last time Notre Dame went into a game where odds makers were saying that Notre Dame's quarterback has a better shot at throwing more yards than USC's quarterback? USC's quarterback, who's top 10 in the country in passing, by the way. So
couldn't tell you, but it's a good feeling.
Yeah, it sure is.
Definitely a good feeling. This is also the lowest odds and sneak preview. We'll probably talk about this tomorrow if the line stays the same. But Jeremiah Love's odds for an anytime touchdown is down to minus 270. Considering last week it was at minus 600 at kickoff. Those are pretty good odds too.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Not bad at all. It is interesting because Notre Dame has played 2 offenses so far that throw the ball really well and throw the ball a lot. And so, we talked about, Trev, this is that game where we kind of – it's the final test to say how good is this team really going to be, and I know that there's people that, they're going to throw for a bunch of yards. But, look, what they did against Arkansas and NC State can't be dismissed. I mean, Taylon Green at 380, 358, 9.9 per attempt, 309, 10.7, 305, 8.7 against Ole Miss, 325, 9.6 yards per attempt against Memphis, 256, 8.3 per attempt against Tennessee on the road against Tennessee, completed 67.7% of his passes. Notre Dame held him to 53.1%, 207 yards, 6.5 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Threw 2 touchdowns, no picks against Tennessee. You look at C.J. Bailey on the season, he's thrown for 318, 9.4, 8.7, 9.3, 10.9, 7.1. Notre Dame has him go 5.9, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. He's been at least 152.99 in rating every week. Notre Dame held him to 98.69. His slowest completion percentage of the season was 69.6. He was over 70 in every other game. Notre Dame held him to 58.1. So it's not like they haven't played other good passing games, and they've always struggled. Like, I still think we're kind of holding on to the to the A&M and Miami games as long that's what Notre Dame's been all year. And as we've said, the first 2.5 quarters of the season, that's exactly what they were, because Purdue threw all over them the first half as well. Since then, they have been much better. So they've got to keep doing the things that led to them turning it around the way that they have. And if you do that, USC is still going to get more. I mean, Jaden Maeva is not going to have the numbers that C.J. Bailey did. That was a really special performance by the defense. But if you can hold him under that number and then still have a lot of attempts, then you're going to be in pretty good shape. But even if he gets to 295, but he has to throw the ball 45 times, 46, 7 times to get there, then you're doing well. So it'll be good.
I think it's also pretty cool to say that CJ Carr has outpassed every quarterback that they've played so far this season, except for Marcel Reed. And that wasn't because CJ Carr went for nothing. It's because C.J. Carr went for 293 and Marcel Reed had 360 passing yards.
But you and I have talked about this. If you flip quarterbacks in that game, CJ throws for 450 at least, because he doesn't miss the 95-yard touchdown that Marcel Reed should have had in the third quarter of that game when Casey Concepcion ran by Christian Gray. So, yeah. Yep. Going to be
Been impressive. Yep, agreed.
We did have a quick super chat, Trev, from Raymond Harton. He says, Cooper Flanagan, close, BD. Close, yeah. Honestly, he's listed as questionable. He may play this week. It wouldn't shock me if he plays this week. I got to be honest. You know what I would do, Trev? I'd play him this week if he's healthy, and then not play him against Boston College and Navy. And then I'd play him against Pitt, Syracuse, and Stanford. So then he gets his 4 games in and gets a red shirt because, unfortunately, Cooper Flanagan played as a true freshman. So he's done after next year if you don't save that year. So if you're going to play him in this game, I would have a plan to not play him in a couple games after that, just because then you're going to have him for the whole postseason, and you can keep that red shirt for him. So, I mean, there's a chance they may pass the rule where you have 5 to play 5, and then he'd get that anyway. But just in case, wouldn't be a terrible idea to, maybe only play him if you need him in this game. And then, maybe not play him against BC and then bring him back against Navy. Have him for the last 4 games as sort of a preseason to get him ready for the postseason. That's just my 2 cents. Because I'd love to have Cooper Flanagan as maybe your top tight end for 2 years. Would be, or at least have him and Flanagan together for 2 years. The 2 Flanagan boys balling out together for a couple years would be pretty nice. Notre Dame passed to Flanagan. Which one? One's 87, one's 88.
One's with an I, one's with an A.
Yeah. So it'd be nice, but it's just something to consider. But I don't know that Notre Dame is going to do that because I think Notre Dame's mindset is we're trying to win it all this year, and we think Cooper Flanagan can help us win it all this year, which he can because he's a good football player. And they have not ran the ball well out of 12 personnel this year, which you and I have talked about. There's reasons for that are not on Ty Washington, but having a guy like Cooper Flanagan, if he's healthy, certainly helps you run the ball more effectively because he's been your best run blocker the last 2 years at tight end.
Yeah, he has. Well, here's to hoping maybe we see him on Saturday. But, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the Irish Breakdown podcast. The guys are going live tonight on IB Nation Sports Beat. They have their midweek mailbag, so make sure you tune into that at 5 p.m. Tomorrow, Brian and I are going live at 2 p.m. We're going over our predictions, game records, and then there's another great slate of college football going on that we will be talking about. So make sure you tune into that tomorrow. On your way out of here, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the CFB Nation channel because tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern, Vince and I are going live for the next edition of the Spread Option.
2 o'clock tomorrow.
Yep, I said that.
Yep. I know. Yep. I'm just re-emphasizing. 2 o'clock tomorrow. I know you said it. I was listening to you. Just
I got
people, 2 o'clock tomorrow, and I appreciate you all understanding why we're going at 2 o'clock tomorrow. But I'm excited about it. And then we're thinking of maybe some little special for the Friday show. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I'm ready for it. But, Trev, the thing I'm looking forward to the most is the post-game show. I'm hoping that it's going to be a fun one.
I'm hoping so too. I don't know how I feel about maybe singing and dancing on it, but I am looking forward to the post game.
Hey, you know what? Listen, I will have no problem singing and dancing in the post game show if it means Notre Dame held USC to 7 points.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. Well, folks, until next time, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown.
Tailgate on Saturday. Don't forget, IB's having a tailgate. We'll be in the Joy slot. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. You're on the boards. I'll tweet the lamp post that we're under. Bring your appetites. My mom is cooking all week, and she does not want to take a bunch of food home. So bring your appetites. We provide this food for you guys. You don't have to be a board member to come to the tailgate. If you listen to our show, if you read our articles, if you listen to our podcast, in any way you are part of the IB community, then you're invited to the tailgate. You can bring your friends. You can bring your family. You can bring other Notre Dame friends, whatever, fans, whatever. This is sort of our thank you for all the support you guys give us. So we provide the food. We'll hang out. Trev and I will be there all day, answering questions, having fun, talking. But make sure you bring your appetites. So my mom is cooking all types of good stuff. I mean, family members will cater my mom to do their weddings because of how well she cooks. So you're going to want to be there. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you come over to the tailgate, Joy Slot. Look for us. We'll have the IB flag flying, so you'll see it above our tent. It's supposed to be windy, so it'll probably be swaying. So you're going to want to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Make sure you hit up that tailgate on Saturday. But until next time, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown podcast.